Miss Liz, tea time, yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time, tea time, yeah, Miss Liz, tea time, yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time, tea time, yeah. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz, tea time. Making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, good morning and welcome to Tea Time. That's right, we are back and we are starting off a brand new month. And I have the incredible Robin Ferrier joining me all the way from UK, Scotland, Italy, Rome, all of those places. He's from all over those places, this man. So he's going to be sharing his TEA with you this morning. And we're going to talk about hypnosis. We're going to talk about depression, divorce, all that good stuff. And we're going to serve you a good, strong cup of tea. So before we get started, I want everybody to grab your tea, coffee, juice, grab your breakfast because breakfast is really, truly important. And without breakfast, we can't start the day off right. So let's get started here for the month of August in 2023. So the disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live shows. Miss Liz myself is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, it may bring forth dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you find that this show is not made for you at this time, I respect your wishes and will see you at a later show at a later date and time. And again, all Tea Time shows are hosted on Thursday, 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this year in 2023. Unless it's a rescheduled tea time, then it's going to be on a Monday or a Tuesday because life does happen, right? So now a little bit about Robin. Well, who is Robin? Well, Robin is a pilot, a coach, a hypnotist, a hypnotherapist, and also an author, which I found last night when I did a little bit more homework on Robin. So let's get Robin in here and let's get him to spill a little bit of tea with us while I sip on my tea. So welcome, Robin.
Hello, Liz, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. Very honored indeed.
It is truly an honor to have you here. It's been really a crazy morning for me over here, getting all this technology in order, my tongue in order, and this tea in order. So, Robin, I want to start off with who are you as a little guy, a little young lad, to who you are now?
Oh, right. Well, that's a fair bit of ground to cover. But as a little lad, I was I was the son of a Church of Scotland minister and his wife, my mum Gillian. And we had a very quiet life in a little sort of regional town in the northeast, well, sorry, southeast of Scotland. And it was, on the face of it, idyllic. However, my issue, if I had one at the age of about 5 years old, was that I had to go to school, just like everybody else does. But my father was the chaplain of the school. And at that time, there was a lot of frustration going on in young kids. And of course, kids just want to take it out on somebody, don't they? And of course, authority comes in all sorts of forms. It could be the teacher, it could be the headmaster. Well, guess what? My father, as the chaplain, was sort of God's representative on earth or in school as far as they were concerned. So they couldn't take it out on God. So what was the next best thing? Well, me. And so that started off life on a fairly challenging note, and it went on till I was about 14. And during that time, it changed me. If I'm honest with you, it changed me from a happy, outgoing young kid to a fairly introverted, quiet, crushed young man who had to overcome many of the self beliefs that he'd created about himself in later, at that time. But those I had to get rid of those beliefs later in my life because it was going to affect me all the way until now. So it's been an interesting ride, Liz, and hypnotherapy is only part of it. So it's been a long journey, and I look forward to telling you some more about it.
Well, and the reason why I always ask all my guests who they were as a kid and who they are now is because sometimes it brings us into our adulthood, right? The journeys that we take and the steps that we have to take. And you started this business called One Small Step. So it has to start with the small steps of being the young lad to where you
Hmm.
are today, right?
I think, like, there's a wonderful phrase that all growth and joy comes on the far side of fear. And basically, what that means is that you could go through life being grey and mediocre and hiding away in the shadow, and in that way, you don't really offend anybody. You don't really get onto anybody's radar. You just exist. You go through life. You do your 70 years, and then you just disappear. And to me, at the age of 14, I just thought, do you know what? That's not for me. I'm not prepared to go quietly. I'm determined to be more than this crushed soul that I felt I was at the time. And so I did everything in my power to kind of overcome the hurdles that ironically I'd created for myself by self beliefs about myself created by bullying. And that was no easy task, but I did all manner of things that pushed my comfort zone way, way out. And you'll never guess, Liz, I'm still doing it because it doesn't stop. You
Right?
keep on keeping on.
So how did you get the name One Small Step?
By the very fact that I understand that, as I mentioned earlier, fear dominates so much of what we do. And so sometimes moving beyond fear just seems utterly impossible to people. But it only takes one small step, the decision to make change. And I think that is the most important thing of all, is just the decision that you've had enough. You want to change. Something new has to happen. I can't put up with this crap any longer. I need to do something different and make something new happen. And that's it. You don't need to do it in big jumps. You don't need to take massive leaps. The superhuman cloak doesn't need to come out of the cupboard. Just a small step is all it takes to get started, and that's hence the name of the organization.
I really like it because it's simple. I like simple things, right? I serve tea. It's very simple, you
Well,
know.
it works for me.
And one small step does make a difference, right? One small step of beating fear and that. And what I
It
found out
certainly
about you, Rob, what I found out about you, Robin, is that you're very determined. You're very, moving forward. You've overcome a lot of obstacles in your life. And being a man, speaking about bullying, has to be hard as well. And you also offer services for men as well for that.
Well, it's an interesting thing you mention it, Liz, but I felt when I was younger that I was isolated and alone. I felt very I'm trying to think of the right word. I felt like I was the only person in the world who was a guy who was going through this. And of course I wasn't. But as you mentioned, guys, they do tend to keep themselves to themselves. They don't like to admit vulnerability in any way, shape, or form. We don't like to discuss emotions because in so doing, we admit vulnerability.
Right.
And vulnerability, barely can say the word,
I can't
it's a
say it, so
huge part
you're good.
of the male psyche. And I accept that, and I can only say to you that because I've been through this process of bullying and come out the other side of it, how can I put this without sounding arrogant? There's nothing left anybody can do to me that will make me feel any worse than I did then. So I just feel able to open up about this. And if anybody wants to enjoy a poke or a to try and make fun or anything like that, that's fine. It's just going to go over there now because that's the past. I'm not that kid of 14 any longer, and that's how I get all my clients to look at it as well. You're not that person that you were. You're not the victim that you used to be. And so determination comes in the form of actually seeking adventure. I'm an adventurer in life. I'm a seeker of stories. It's a process whereby I find that there is opportunity everywhere to live a big life if only people would reach out and take it. And I mean that from the lowest person up to the highest. And who is low, who is high? It's just a simple matter of understanding that we put ourselves in boxes, and the events that happen to us in life either confirm or go against our self view. And so often we just accept that that self view is correct and we stay in our box because it's painful, it's challenging to move out of that box. But I just say, to hell with that. Challenge it, ask questions, and then ask, why do I have to be in any box? So I'm not sticking myself in any box, and I'm not going to allow anybody else to do the same for me. I'm fighting that part of me that allowed myself in the past to be put in a box. I won't have that, or I won't have it for others either.
So, Robin, you said you like adventure. Is that what got you to be a pilot? Was the adventure of flying, the adventure of beating that fear? Because I was afraid of flying for the longest time, and I finally flew. I think I took my first flight in 2019, I believe, and I was scared. I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a ride." So, what got you into being a pilot?
I've often asked myself that. It's almost more of, Liz, it would have been a bigger decision not to be a pilot because I can't really say I would have imagined anything else I could have done with my life. But it wasn't to come easily. I had red green color blindness when I was young. I still do. I am red green
Ooh.
colorblind. And when I was younger, that kept me out of flying. And of course, you could imagine that when I was a young boy, that was going to be my salvation, having been bullied. That was going to get me out of all of this. And then I was told I couldn't. And I thought, oh God, well, my life's come to an end. That's my whole raison d'etre has just collapsed. And so I decided to work in aviation as a businessman, and that kept me close to airplanes, but that wasn't quite enough. Until one day I decided to go on holiday, which involved flying, and I had to go and get a medical. And somebody said to me at the time, do you know the law's changed? That you can still be red, green, colorblind, but be a pilot at the same time.
Oh,
Really? And I thought, oh my God, right. So I ended up getting on a plane from Middle East to Gatwick in London and had the full test done. And I passed the colorblindness test. And it was ironic because the guy there had been working as a medical man in the Saudi army, and he'd just come back, and he sort of took me under his wing because I'd be working out in the Middle East as well. And he said, well, look, do you want to do the rest of your test? Because it's pretty involved. And I said, well, I hadn't really bargained on doing that, so I haven't made the booking. And fate, how things happen serendipitously, kismet, call it what you like. He said, two guys from Iceland have just cancelled. They're stuck on the motorway. They can't make it in time. So if you want it, there's your slot, there's your chance. You've passed your colorblindness test. Are you prepared to go the next step? Hell yes. And that's how it started. So life changed beyond all measure. I was a businessman out in Oman, living a very comfortable life, tax-free salary, and then I went to becoming a pilot student, earning nothing. And it was brilliant. I can't tell you. It was fantastic. Challenging, scary, but brilliant.
Well, and you have a program called I believe it's called Flying. Where is it? Fear of Flying. So I find that it aligns with all of you, what you've done in your lifetime, right? Is you became a pilot, the flying, the fear, everything just aligns together with your story and who you are as an individual, Robin. So where did you get the fear of flying or beating the fear of flying?
Well, I'm not quite catching everything you're saying at the moment. I'm sorry, the line's a little bit bad. Of course, you're in Canada, I'm in England. So if I understand you correctly, you're asking me where does the fear come in? And fear for me has been an intrinsic part of my life, as you can understand, from a very young age, because I became super hyper vigilant. I became terrified of my own shadow. When I was younger, I used to rush my words out because I was so utterly stressed about everything, and I didn't want to be seen or heard. So I would just stumble words out. People would go, "What? What did you say?" And then that would be enough to completely freak me. And I see other kids now who are super stressed doing the same thing, and I think, "Ah, you poor kid, I know how you feel." And so, as I say to you, growth and happiness is always on the far side of fear. You gotta push through it. There's no alternative. And so what I did was I recognized this quite early on by reading the book by Susan Jeffers called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And cut a long story short, that saved me from a lot more stress and anxiety than probably I would have endured had I just tried to struggle on my own. And I owe that little book a lot. So as a result, I became a trainer for that organization, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And now I provide people with an insight into the role of fear in our everyday lives and how to surpass it, how to get past it. Because everything we do, I think, has a large part of fear in it. And I think a lot of people misunderstand what I mean by that because they think it's all to do with sort of Halloween and people getting frights and shock. It's not so much that. It's about the concept of not wanting to do something because there is a consequence. And there are all manner of fears that people have, and they don't necessarily know that they've got them, because a lot of them are held in our subconscious. And of course, that's where the hypnotherapy comes in, because the subconscious is the part of our psyche which basically drives pretty much everything we do. But we don't know that it's doing it because it is subconscious. We don't know what's happening. We can't see it, we can't feel it, but we know something's going on because we react, we respond, we behave in a certain way.
So, what is it about our subconscious that puts us in that fear state?
The subconscious itself is not necessarily predisposed to being in a fear state, although we have a natural system which we call the amygdala, and it's there from prehistoric times to essentially keep us away from things that will kill us or poison us or generally make our day seem less than optimal. It's to create an awareness of what's going on around us and to evaluate risk. And it's on 24 hours a day, operated through our subconscious system. And it's kept us alive up until now. But the problem is, it is 24 hours a day. It doesn't switch off. And when we were cavemen and we were hunting, we would be aware of what was happening in trees and bushes beside us. We would maybe hear rustling and we would go, aha, saber-toothed tiger, better go and watch this. And so it would create three options for us. It would create a fight or a flight or a freeze option. And the fight, you will understand, was just literally saving your life by strangling the saber-toothed tiger or sticking a knife into it. The flight was to run away and hide in a cave. But the other one, the freeze option, was one that people haven't really talked about quite so much, and it leads to all sorts of interesting consequences in our daily life, not least of which is procrastination. So freeze was the reaction we would have to that saber-toothed tiger, which said, oh, I'm dead. Don't kill me now because I'm dead already and I'm probably decaying, so you don't want to eat me. So that was the idea. And you would find also that it was there to stop you making noises. You know, maybe the saber-toothed tiger would just walk past you, not see that you were there. But now, because we are basically cavemen, you know, walking around in jeans and t-shirts and suits, we haven't quite developed emotionally as much as our culture has.
Oh.
And that's what seems to be causing so much of our stress and anxiety just at this time, because we still have this amygdala doing its thing, saving us from saber-toothed tigers. But now, instead of a rustling bush with a tiger behind it, we see threat in virtually everything. So that isn't too surprising, therefore, that we should feel anxious, that we should feel afraid, but not necessarily with any real conscious concept of what it is we're afraid of. We just know that we're constantly stressed, we're under tension, we feel nervous, anxious, or there are certain things which of themselves are not particularly frightening. But if you combine them with a series of other events, circumstances, they become a monster because of our amygdala. And that's a lot of what I do with talking about fear. It's that whole, is it real? Let's look at this. Let's make a real balanced decision about what it is that we're confronting. Is what we are afraid of real? And you'd be surprised how many of these things that we're afraid of, they're I'm not saying that they're all in our mind, because that unfortunately leads on to a whole set of other confusions.
Yeah.
They are real to the person feeling them, but the reality of the situation often is that the feeling they have regarding their situation bears no comparison to the reality of the situation, because they've misconstrued, misperceived, and allowed their amygdala to overcompensate for a situation which really doesn't justify the feelings that they're feeling. Does that make them feel better? Not a
Yeah.
whole lot, but it just is the knowledge and part of the healing process that allows them to move forward, because knowledge is power. And with that power, you realize to some extent that you've created the situation into which you've fallen. It's not like, ha ha, there you are, get out of that. No, it's to do with the idea that, well, don't worry about this. This is something that we can understand now, given that we understand psychology and neuroscience so much better than we did even 10 years ago. So here's how we're going to deal with it. And then we then go through a healing process.
So we have a question here for you, Robin. Why would someone have fear of hypnosis?
As many reasons as there are people, I would suspect, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of people don't truly understand what both hypnosis and hypnotherapy actually is. I think a lot of people are mindful of old 1950s films where there used to be somebody wearing a fez, or who looked like somebody who came out of a very dark, hidden alley, covered in scars. And they would maybe wind a watch in front of you, and you would
And
suddenly go
that's what I got for
brrr,
hypnosis.
and
Was that watch, right? Was what, like in the video you see Robin is the
well,
watch.
the whole thing about the watch is it was there to create something to focus upon. And that's what we do in hypnotherapy, in hypnosis. It's not a sort of zoning out. In fact, it's absolutely the opposite. It's an extreme focus, hypervigilance, hypersensitivity to what's going on, but inside your own mind. And it's not a process of losing control. It's actually taking control. You are guiding your own mind to places that you want to go. And I think the final thing about what people may be afraid of is that they are not quite sure what you, the hypnotherapist, are going to do, and therefore they feel that you may give them some suggestions or put some code into their mind that somehow allows you to take advantage of them. I would like anybody who's watching this to be reassured that nobody can do that to you. You will not do anything for a hypnotherapist or hypnotist that you do not want to do, because it will go against your natural values, and your natural values are resident within your subconscious. And so it's the subconscious that we're dealing with. And if it says, let's put it this way, Liz, I could be a very rich man by now, couldn't I, if I was able to do that?
Yeah.
And I can't. So I say to you, you retain control of yourself at all times. That's what I think people are afraid of. Or something else that I haven't heard of yet.
So we have another question for you, Robin. If you've been hypnotized once, can you get re-hypnotized over and over again?
Sorry, Liz, could you say that again?
The way it's worded here is, if you've been hypnotized once, can you be re-hypnotized over and over again?
You could be hypnotized anytime. I mean, you could be hypnotized now. You might not even theoretically know it. I mean, there's the irony. We're hypnotized by the media every day. They use techniques to use all manner of mind. I'm going to watch what I say here, because there's lawyers that like to take advantage of you. The media use all the tricks in the book to create fear within their readership or their viewership, because advertising is part and parcel of the media. That's where the money comes from when they, do the news, for example. And if everything's going well and everything's tickety boo, well, somehow that doesn't really sell newspapers, because what really happens is they create a situation whereby they want people to feel nervous. They want people to activate their amygdala, to feel that they need to take action, to do something. And in order to do that, they need information. And you will find that 99% of what comes on the TV these days is negative in order to achieve better advertising sales through viewership. Now, people will call that conspiracy theory. Some people will say that I'm being cynical. And all I would say is just have a look at what it is that comes on your TV every day. I would suggest to you that fear is a very large part of what comes on that television. And so that's why I generally don't watch it. I sometimes end up in a situation that gets a little bit awkward because something happens on TV and I'm the last person to hear about it. But frankly, that's a rarity. And I just find that I live a better life not being played with by people using underhand methods. And hypnotherapy goes way back in terms of how things could be done to play with people. Now, remember, first of all, what I said, that people will not do anything that goes against their values. But people who work in TV and radio and the newspapers are not daft. So they will instill doubt. They use doubt and uncertainty. And that doesn't go against your values. That's probably one of your strong values. It's one of those self-protective things. And this is why when I talk about fear, I have to ask people to really evaluate, is the fear real? Because there are so many fears that people have that are based on things that they haven't actually evaluated themselves. They've just heard it from somebody else and they've accepted it. And it's a little bit like Chinese whispers, whereby somebody always adds a little bit more to it, adds that extra piquancy of spice. And I find that by the time it's got to the listener, the world is about to collapse, when in actual fact, somebody had a trip and a fall in the house next door. It's something we have to be aware of, and it's something that when we speak about fear in people, I ask people to be much more self-aware. Where does that information come from, and is it real? And I'm not just talking about the TV now. I'm talking about, for example, when you have an argument with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and you have a fear that having had that argument, they might leave you. Where does that come from? Is that your fear? Is it based on reality? Would having an open conversation help reduce that fear? Or are you going to just stick it out and hope everything's going to be okay? And in the process, get so tense, get so strung out that the next time you see your boyfriend or your girlfriend, you have a very tense and awkward conversation. And you actually create the situation that you were afraid to encounter, because you are awkward, you are stiff, you're difficult, worried that they have got a bad opinion of you. And because you are the way you are, they think, don't know if I like you very much anymore. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does, right? And that's why we get married and we get divorced, right? Because sometimes we just fall out of love, or we find that this is not serving me anymore. This is not feeding me anymore. You know, uh, I want to understand why you got into hypnotherapy, Robin.
Well, you've chosen an interesting subject in terms of relationships. I'm 2 years out of a 20 plus year relationship, and we could spend great time and effort talking about me, but that's not what I'm all about. I think, first of all, men and women, we don't talk the same language. Never did, never
Exactly.
will. We come from language with two different priorities. and that's okay until it comes to long-term relationships. Uh, the old book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It is an absolute prerequisite for anybody going into a long-term relationship, just to understand where people are coming from when they open their mouths and the way they behave. But there's another one that I really like that you might or might not have heard of, called The Way of the Superior Man. And whilst it's talking about men, I would suggest it's also very useful for women, because after having my 20 odd year old relationship fall through my hands, I began to realize just what was going on that I had no idea was happening. Because most guys will go through a relationship fat, dumb, and happy, or maybe not happy, but just fat and dumb quite a lot of the time. And I'm speaking about myself primarily, but I see it in others. And we just do not know there's a problem. Okay, yes, the lady said this, the lady said that. Maybe she did this, maybe she did that. But we interpret it as just being annoying or frustrating or being a woman. And that's all well and good until the day when she says, I want a divorce. And then you realize, oh, hell, this was for real. And I think it's a great pity. I mean, I'm not really talking about myself anymore, but I see so many relationships founder. And it's just because we are not really understanding what's going on in our relationships. And we blame each other for that fact. And so I think you'll find that women primarily decide that they've had enough. I think about 80% of the relationships in the UK, at least, are ended by the woman,
Oh,
because they, for their own reasons, feel that there is an alternative. And that's an interesting stat. I think you'll find it's the same in the USA. And I think that at the moment, we're just needing to understand each other better.
wow. That's really interesting facts. I'm a woman, so I'm really interested with with that status uh, because it, if you look back at relationships, it usually is the woman that says, you know what, I'm done, and moves forward.
Well, men are into accepting pain, and I don't mean that in a Miss Whiplash point of view. I'm talking about men are happy in a relationship when they're in a relationship, if that makes any sense. The act of being in a relationship is a goal in itself, and the 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 growth that tends to come within a relationship quite often tends to be driven by the lady. And men are not necessarily conscious of the fact that the relationship isn't a static vehicle. They will want things to just carry on the way they have always been, and that's great. And then it's not. But we don't see it coming. And you could tell me, well, we gave you plenty clues. And I would suggest to you that we didn't understand the clues. We didn't get the significance. We didn't understand what you wanted. And let's be a little bit equal about this. Maybe you didn't understand us either. So let's keep it balanced, huh? And I speak as one who desperately wants people to understand each other better. And I don't just talk about relationships now of a male female nature. I'm talking about any kind of
Yeah.
relationship with the friends at work, with your manager, with the people that you work around. It could be with family members. But do you know what the biggest relationship of all is? The relationship you have with yourself. And what I'm seeing now in men particularly is a lack of self-esteem, a lack of self-confidence, a lack of purpose, a lack of drive, because men feel that they have no place, they have no purpose, that we are superfluous. And that's a bit of a scary thing. And we could talk about this at great length, but I think for both men and women, a concept of who you are and who you want to be is so important, because you can't find joy and peace and happiness until you actually like yourself, until you can look in that in that mirror and say, yeah, you're okay. You're doing all right. Keep up the good work. Because most of us look in that mirror in the morning and think, oh, God, I really don't like you. Maybe you'll look better tomorrow. You know? And tomorrow comes and it's just the same old face, a day older. What are you going to do about it? Well, you need to change your point of view on life.
So there is a little gap in between, because I've noticed it when I'm asking a question. Robin's taking a few seconds to process it. So there is some little a little disturbance in the techno this morning. So, Robin, I want to get into. You bring up some really good points. Until you love yourself, until you look in the mirror and you say,
Yeah, I'm
"Wow,
sorry.
I really like this guy. I really like this woman." It's really hard to make a relationship with anybody. So we really got to start loving ourselves and just being ourselves. So I want to get into your tea this morning, Robin. If I ask you what your tea is, what 3 words would you give me for the TEA?
Well, the first one I think is fairly predictable: transformation. And I think the whole concept of hypnotherapy is about transformation of an idea or a belief, because 99% of what we do in life is created, as I said to you earlier, within the subconscious, where our beliefs about ourselves and the world come from. And the irony is, a lot of these beliefs are set up in a very early age. And by the age of 7, they're pretty much set in concrete. So all the things that happen to you up until the age of 7, they get sort of secreted away. And then when we grow up, we still retain those old feelings, those old beliefs. And we need to sometimes transform them from the beliefs of a 7-year-old to the beliefs of somebody who matches our present bodily age. So, for example, if somebody said, Johnny, you're such a stupid kid. At the age of 4 or 5, you don't have enough character to really know that the person is just being a bit hard and trying to sort of motivate you to be better. You believe that you're stupid. So you put that away, and you take that with you into your adult life. And then something comes along and triggers you, and you have this innate feeling of, God, I'm worthless, I'm stupid. And you don't know where it comes from. And we need to transform that. And sometimes it takes a lot for people to admit that they need to change, but change so often is necessary. So transformation. Next thing, enlightenment. As we've talked about the amygdala, there are things in science that a lot of people don't know about. And we're learning new things every day. Neuroscience is a hugely accelerating process, and I'm learning so much more every day myself. So enlightenment about who we are, why we are, and how we are is so important, because we accept things about ourselves that we don't need to do. Like, Johnny isn't stupid, because we know now that the neuroscientists have told us that there are so many processes that go into creating self-beliefs, but we can also change those. We created them, so we can change them. We have that power within us. And that's enlightenment. I suppose you'd call it knowledge or education. So that's a lot of what I do. It's helping people know of things. the science of the brain is crucial, because people, they put themselves down thinking that they're not worthy, they're not enough. But to know that that is a normal, scientific, proven fact, that people who have gone through what you've gone through feel the way you do because. And because is one of the most powerful words that I use in hypnotherapy, because 99% of people think, I'm different, I'm weird, I'm just, and it's not true. It is so common to feel the way you do. It's just that nobody talks about it. And then finally, awareness, self-awareness. It's so, so important, because we go through life awash with emotions. And guys particularly, we just go la 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 la. I don't hear this, I don't feel this, I don't want to feel this, I've no idea what's going on, I'm just going to push through. I'm going to use power over every other thing that's going on in my life. I'm going to push my way through this. And that usually works right up until the point you have a mental breakdown. And that is so horrible to watch, because you could have avoided it. Now, as I say to you, guys are tough on themselves. And I really ask any guy just to now think about what it is you're feeling and give a name to it. Identify the emotion that you're feeling. And there's probably more than one. But if you can strip it down, you can then analyze it. And then you go through the formula of analyzing the fear. Is the fear real? Is it optimal? Does it work for you? Self-awareness. It's the process by which we strip our feelings down, look at them in the cold light of day, and hold them up for scrutiny and say, does that work for us? Does it serve us? And if not, let's do something about it. So there you go. Transformation, enlightenment, and awareness.
I love it. It's a good, strong cup of tea. And that's how we do it here on Tea Time with Miss Liz, is we serve different types of tea, right? And we use the words to give our stories a little bit of a strength and flavor, and Robin, your tea actually aligns with what you're doing with your life, where you've come from, you know. I asked you a question to describe yourself in one word, and you gave me the word measure. Why did you give me the word measure for?
Blah, 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 blah. You've completely floored me. Measured.
Yeah, you gave me the word measure when I asked you to give me a word to describe yourself. So I'm not sure where measure comes in.
Oh, I don't remember saying that, but measured. Okay. Oh, yes, I see where you're going with this now. Sorry. This is a person who's
That's
now been
okay. It just
completely
went
flummoxed and is
over
having
the
to think
head.
on his feet. Measured, yeah. Yeah, no, I know where you're coming from now. Measured, yes. The the whole thing about being a guy who's been bullied is self-control, because he generally doesn't want the world to see the person he feels he is. Doesn't want to admit that he feels vulnerable, doesn't want to admit that his self-esteem is down on the floor, that his self-confidence is not there. There's a lot about me. Sorry, this is a bad line. That he does not want the world to see. And so it's all about mental self-control. And I would suggest to pretty much anybody watching this that a knowledge of your own mind is so powerful, because you can see things coming. I mean, we talk, for example, in hypnotherapy about triggers. Triggers are things that are essentially deep-rooted memories and feelings and emotions that are dormant within the subconscious right up until something comes along to just stir them up again and bring back those feelings that you thought were long gone. And so let's talk about trauma then in childhood. You might have had a very abusive mother or father, and that would have been traumatic. You would have had all manner of negative feelings, and those would be stored away in that dark cupboard with cobwebs and dust on it in the subconscious. And you may well have done lots of therapy and all sorts of good things and kissed that goodbye right up until the point where you end up in an argument with your husband, your boyfriend, girlfriend, and she throws something at you, or maybe it's a friend or even a work colleague, and that feeling that you had when you were so much younger just comes back, bites you in the arse, and you do something or you say something which is totally disproportionate to the situation. You're not feeling something that relates to what that person said to you. You are responding to the feeling that then created, which was that old memory from way, way back. That's a trigger. And you respond to those triggers so often disproportionately. So, measured. It's through being self aware, self knowledge, and enlightened about the science of neuroscience and psychology generally that allows me to at least make an effort to control those things I know are my weaknesses, my triggers, the things that, you know, things that we say we've fixed that we haven't fixed because they're still there. We just have a bigger noose around their neck once we've had therapy.
So I want to get into we're almost at the hour here, Robin. So what programs and services do you offer for hypnotherapy?
Liz, I'm so sorry. The line just died on me there. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, okay. I was asking. We're almost at the hour, almost done our tea time here. So, what services and programs do you offer through your services, Robin?
Thank you very much, Liz. Well, the services I operate, you'll not be too surprised to hear, is firstly hypnotherapy. And that is for anything the mind can conceive can also be changed and improved. And that, therefore, really opens up a massive scope for work that anybody can go through. There are the traditional things that you'll all have heard about, stopping smoking, weight reduction, all those good things, but that is just the very top of the iceberg. I'm seeing people coming to me for all kinds of addictions, all manner of mental health problems, but there's things like phobias, people who are afraid of things that don't necessarily, to you and me, justify fear. There are all sorts of enhancements that we can create within people. People who are sportsmen can be better golfers, better baseball players. Oh, it's anything to do with the mind can be enhanced. Um, I don't know if you remember that film Limitless, where there was a chappie who would take a pill and it gave him access to so much more of his brain, and it just made him limitless. And he ended up, well, he basically got into a bit of a mess because he abused drugs. But the fact is, we can enhance ourselves using hypnotherapy, but we can also take the brakes off our life. And that's where I come in, because I've put brakes on my life. I've held myself back. I've been the grey man. I've stood in the shadow for too long. And there's so many people out there who are just waiting to die. They just want it all to be over and just get on with it. Stop messing about. I hate this existence. And I just say to you, I want you to know that there is another way. I'm here and I'm ready to help. And it just takes the courage to extend the hand and say, please help, ready.
So, Robin, do you offer services in person and virtual?
I predominantly offer services virtually, but I also have offices in Eastbourne on the south coast of England, and so I do have face-to-face visits there. Uh, One thing I did forget to mention is I also offer coaching for those who are still a little bit uncertain about the concept of hypnosis. And then finally, I offer for men particularly, but also for women, a course for bullying survivors, because that, as you may have gathered, is something I feel very strongly about. It's a 3 month course. It's all done online. So if you feel awkward about dealing with somebody face to face, either physically or virtually, you can do this in your own time at your own speed, and it's a very profound process of healing through self knowledge. I find that very, very powerful, and I recommend that. And generally, I think the other things I do is I just add to people's awareness at the moment. I have a lot of social media presence. I like to add to people's awareness of the power of the mind, because it is so, so powerful. And people go through life unaware of its effects, just assume that life is shit and then you're dead, when in fact there is such a massive spectrum of things that are going on. And if only you knew what you were feeling was normal and reasonable and could be changed, then you'd do something about it. And that's where I come in.
So, if anybody wanted to reach you, how could they reach you?
My website is www.robinferrier.co.uk, and you'll find all the contact forms and details on there. One Small Step Hypnotherapy is the name of my organization, and I'm on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and whatever else there is out there. I'm sure there's many, many more. And I have quite a lot to say, as you'll have gathered. I don't keep my mouth shut.
Well, it was a real pleasure having you here today on Tea Time, Robin. You know, so any final words you have for the listening audience out there?
Um, Quite simply, there is always hope. And anybody who's going through a hard time, anybody who struggles, I want you to know you're not a victim, because victims are not people who have power. We all have power. We just have forgotten where we put it. And therapy, be it hypnotherapy or any other kind of therapy, will help to release that power that you'd forgotten you had. So, whatever you do, take action. Don't sit there and expect a white knight to come. You are your own white knight.
Well, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure having you here today, this morning on Tea Time. And for anybody who would like to know more about Robin, check out Miss Liz's Facebook page. Check out Miss Liz's website at www.misslizsteatimes.com, and go to the YouTube channel, give it a subscribe, and watch this Tea Time over and over again. Again, pick out some pointers and tips and tools, anything that will help you. And if you know that this Tea Time will help somebody out there, share this Tea Time, because sharing is caring, and we do make a difference when we share the resources that are out there. Again, thank you again, Robin, for joining me on Tea Time. I will see everybody back here this afternoon at 3 p.m.
Thank you,
Eastern
Liz.
Standard Time. It was a real pleasure, Robin. And I'll be back also at 7 p.m. So today we're going to be talking about the mind a lot. This afternoon we'll be talking about healthy retirement, the mindset of retiring healthy. And then we'll be jumping into fantasy with a returning guest from season 3. Zachary Hagman is back, and he'll be giving us an update on his latest book and all that good stuff. So until then, I will see everybody at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are just getting August started. So there are 12 more after today. So check out those tea times and register on the website. Give them a quick RSVP. And I will see everybody at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time again. And again, I want to thank all the supporters, all of the people who have joined in and listened this morning. And if you're watching Tea Time, and it's a replay. Push hashtag replay. Let me know where you're tuning in from, because I always love to know where you guys are coming in from. And if you'd like to see a topic that I haven't touched on yet, please let Miss Liz know, and I will get that out there. Until then, I will wish you all a good day, and I will see you this afternoon for the second tea time of August 3rd, 2023.